objects.
Really?
I've got a green.
Put it up against
As
another.
if
And then,
I remember.
It was characteristics, not even the shape.
negative.
Mentally ill. Mentally
Did
insane.
a special effects agency. All right, we are joined here today by Dimitri Agrafiotis. Am I getting the last name right?
That was very good. Very good.
That must be Greek.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Dimitri, do you want to talk a little bit about what you do? Because I read on your thing, it says e-vapor industry expert. And
Sure.
people might not know what that means. So kind of talk about your background a little bit.
Sure. So my current title is Executive Director of the Tennessee Smoke-Free Association, which is an industry and consumer advocacy group in the state of Tennessee, protecting tobacco harm reduction products such as vapor products. But my paying job is obviously a vapor industry consultant. I work with e-liquid manufacturers through regulatory framework. I design products for Chinese manufacturers, hardware products that are being sold across the world, really. And started off my journey, ironically, just doing YouTube videos 10 years ago. I was a heavy smoker. I come from a background in Greece where smoking is a national pastime. So quickly, when I was young, at the age of 13, I picked up the habit.
Wow.
And then got married, had a couple of beautiful daughters, and I was approaching the age of 37, 38, which is very significant for me because my father died at the age of 39, only when I was 2, from a tobacco-related illness. He had a heart attack in his sleep Christmas night and passed away. So as I was approaching that age, I needed to quit smoking because I felt I was going down that same path, and I wanted to be around for my kids. So, I tried the patches, the gums, the Chantix. The whole slew of things that are available out there, and nothing worked for me. And ironically, my wife just said, one day said, "Hey, I saw this neighbor. He had this little like fake cigarette. It was like a battery cigarette." Like I was like, "What the hell? We've tried everything else. Go ahead and order us one of that." And this was 10 years ago. Keep in mind, the technology was way less than it is now. And this kit came in, and I read the instructions. I charged it up. I put a little cartridge on, and I tried it, and I was like, "Oh my God." I immediately quit smoking. Wow. I was just amazed at the technology that there was, I'm a gadgety guy as well too. So that there was technology out there that can actually satisfy me and help me quit smoking. So I quickly got on the internet, started researching the product, and I found some YouTube videos, but most of them were, younger people, like in their 20s, and I couldn't relate to them. So I told my wife, I said, I'm just going to do some YouTube videos just to help other people, discover this, because not a lot of people are talking about it. Keep in mind, this is 2010. There was no juuling or none of that going on back then.
Yeah.
So it just started like that, and it was like 100, people, and then 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 20, and it just blew up into something. I just kind of fell into this role, whether I wanted it or not, because of my age group. Now I'm 49, but because of my age group being a little bit older, I started to do some research. And quickly realized around 2012 or 2013, I was like, man, this product is so good that there's no way that the government's going to allow it to be around, because, me and my wife both quit smoking with this product. We were spending, between $3,800 to $4,500 a year in cigarettes, which half of that is tax, for the state of Tennessee.
Yep.
So you can imagine if 10,000 people quit smoking, it's $2 million just out the door like that from tobacco taxes. So
Yep.
I started just doing research and educating myself on laws and regulations. And that's how I kind of fell into this position where, I kind of lead these business owners and consumers that are fighting for their right now to stay smoke free.
Wow. That's a hell of a story. And to hear that you kind of have that personal background in it too, and that kind of intrigued you to get into the industry and make changes that, are
Absolutely.
positive for everybody. My question to you is, when did vaping become a thing? Because I can only think back, a couple of years, and, it's become so mainstream now. But when did it kind of go to become a thing where people just normally, you do it? You normally do it. It's like cigarettes now.
Sure. So Juul is probably the culprit. I don't want to badmouth the company because they have a good product and it has helped a lot of adults quit smoking. I believe that harm reduction is good, and no matter who sells it, whether it's going to be big tobacco companies, independent vapor industry like I represent, as long as you have a less harmful product than cigarettes, it's good. But the problem with Juul was that the tactics that they used to become popular are a little bit sketchy. They started to kind of infiltrate into the colleges, into that 18, 19-year-old crowd. Keep in mind, find that there's a lot of college students that depend on nicotine. They're not addicted to nicotine, but nicotine helps you focus. A lot of people that suffer, from various things, especially when you're in college and you're trying to concentrate. There's a lot of cigarette use. So Juul kind of went after that market to get people to quit smoking and start using their product, which is good. But the problem is that 18 to 19 has a lot of that crossover to high school. And you got, 18-year-olds are still in high school at the time before the law changed. Now was 21. So what happened is there was a lot of crossover. These younger, youth started using it, and then obviously kids, they experiment. They experiment with everything that comes out, whether that be drugs, that be alcohol, Molly, weed, that's just what all kids do, right? So vaping was the next thing that kids started to experiment with. And really the spotlight on Juul did not really become as huge as it did until the anti-tobacco control groups, people that you'd think would care about smokers, like Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids and the CDC and American Cancer, they started shining this huge spotlight on, like, kids, don't get hooked on vaping. And, we saw these ads with zombies and just some ridiculous stuff that's never worked for kids. I mean, no kid had ever looked at the 2 eggs that Nancy Reagan put out there and said, well, I'm not going to do drugs because there's 2 eggs talking to me from a frying pan. So all of a sudden, just youth by its nature, they want to be, anti-establishment. So if you're going to tell me not to do something, I'm going to go do it. And I think that's when it really took off a couple of years ago. And then we saw a lot of experimentation from kids using these vapor products. Now, on, again, the positive side, youth smoking of cigarettes is at an all-time low. It's down to 10% this year. Compared to 40% when I was in high school in the 80s. Okay. Wow. So there's a huge benefit here that kids that were addicted to smoking maybe were smarter than some of these adults and actually transition to vapor products, because when you leave smoking, that's a net benefit for public health. And also, a lot of these figures that we're hearing are a little bit overinflated, especially the ones that come in from the Youth Tobacco Survey, which comes out every year from the CDC. So if you look at the questions that they're asking these kids, the question is, have you, used a vaping device in the past 30 days? And the kid says yes. So they automatically put him down as a user of the product, which is not accurate.
No.
Number one, they could have just tried it from their buddy. Then I might be daily users. Number two, they might be vaping weed. Vaping weed, I hate to tell you, I have a teenage daughters. I can tell you, vaping weed is very, very popular. But of course, no kid is going to say that they're vaping THC. So if they're vaping THC, and somebody asks them about vaping, they're like, oh yeah, I was vaping, vapor products.
Yeah.
So the numbers are a little bit skewed. There's experimentation going on. Absolutely. Are kids trying it? Absolutely. But that does not give the right to take away products that have helped adults like me and continue to help me to stay off cigarettes.
Wow, yeah. That brings us to a good point. What is the difference, the biggest difference between a regular cigarette and tobacco and e-vapor products, the Juul, anything? What's the biggest difference?
That's a great question, because I've never been asked it like that. But the biggest difference between a combustible cigarette and an electronic cigarette is that there is no combustion in an electronic cigarette. So combustion is the deadliest part of a cigarette. We're lighting it on fire. We're inhaling tar, smoke, burning paper, and tobacco. That action simply does not exist in an electronic cigarette. Okay, it's a vaporized product, meaning it's a liquid that heats up and emits a vapor and not actual tobacco smoke. Tobacco smoke is actually the killer in cigarette, not nicotine. It's a big misconception over the last 20, 30 years of the American public thinking that nicotine is what kills you in a cigarette, but it's not. It's the smoke and the tar that causes cancer and lung cancer and all these tobacco-related illnesses. So once you remove that equation, you've removed most of the harm of the action of intaking nicotine in a safer, cleaner delivery method. Now, by no means am I saying that electronic cigarettes are safe, but there is no, that word is, you can walk outside of your studio there and just get hit by a car, right? So there's no, but by science and by magnitudes of studies, they have been proven that they're less harmful than cigarettes. It's some estimates from the Royal College of Physicians put it at 95% less harmful than cigarettes. So basically, I always equate it as to, using condoms when you're having sex. It's not 100% proof. It's 99% you're not going to have a kid, right?
Yeah.
Using gloves when you're cutting fish. You might not cut your finger all the way, but you might get, so using knee pads, it's a form of harm reduction. It's like giving methadone to people that have been addicted to heroin. It's exactly the same way. So that's the biggest difference. And the second biggest difference is that unlike a cigarette, vaping does not make you addicted to the product, because a cigarette addiction is one of the hardest things. I don't know if any of you smoke, but I'm sure your listeners that have struggled with this or battled with this in their life, they will know that smoking was for me at least, and from a lot of people that I've helped quit smoking, is one of the hardest things that you can do in your life. It's even harder than some drugs to quit. So you don't have that same dependency, because the vapor product does not contain all the chemicals that a cigarette does. Over 4,000 different types of chemicals in today's composition of a cigarette, the way the big tobacco companies make it, which make you more addicted to the product. So you're getting nicotine, but you're really addicted to that physiological effect that a cigarette brings, and that's removed from an electronic cigarette as well.
Is there enough research right now in e-vapor products? Obviously with cigarettes, we have decades and decades of research. For the e-vapor industry, is there enough research right now where they can come out and say, we can track this many deaths related to vaping, or we can track this many, is there research out there for that right now?
Sure. There's absolutely zero deaths by using these products. Absolutely zero deaths. There's over 6,000 peer-reviewed studies that show the efficacy of these products and the safety of these products. And none of the deaths, especially if you remember a year ago when we had this huge EVALI crisis in America, people were talking about vaping makes your lungs and it's taking teenagers to the hospital.
Yeah.
None of those people that were in the hospital were ever connected to nicotine vapor products. All of them were vaping tainted THC carts from California that were manipulated with vitamin E acetate. I'm not a weed guy, but I know a lot about it because I have to, because of my research. But apparently, liquid THC, if it's thicker, is more desirable by users. I don't know why, but that's what they say. So some drug dealers out in California are like, okay, well, we're just going to cut it with some vitamin E acetate, make it look thicker, and we make more profits. And then they flooded the market in America with these dank carts that were called or whatever. A lot of them, got busted. But those carts contain an oil. So oil is not good to be inhaled into your lungs. And this is what's causing some of these kids to go to the hospital and even some deaths. Now, keep in mind, you're 17 years old. You get sick, you go to the hospital, you're the parents there, and the doctor asks you, what were you doing before? Nobody's going to say, oh, yeah, I was vaping a dank cart,
Yeah, no.
So they were saying, oh, I was vaping. So the CDC, of course, and the people that are against vaping took this and ran with it on a huge publicity stunt and scared a lot of people away from vaping, even drove people that actually had quit smoking with vaping. They drove those people back to combustible cigarettes, which is criminal in my opinion. But as far as the product itself, nicotine vapor products contain no oil. They don't operate with oil. Okay, they're all vegetable-based, propylene glycol, liquid nicotine that's used in the same nicotine as patches and gums, the same pharmaceutical nicotine, and then different aromas or flavorings that are added in there to give the different tastes for the people what they want. So, yeah, zero deaths attributed to.
That's great. I mean, that's good to hear, because there's a lot of people my age doing it. And I'm sure you can attest to this because you said you were a previous cigarette smoker.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the government has gotten more strict on vape products than they were on cigarettes, let's say 30 years ago?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you why.
Yeah, I want to know why.
Vaping is a disruptive technology. Okay, think about Uber. When Uber came around, taxi unions in New York, there were fights. There's lawsuits going on. Cell phone, the same thing. Streaming TV now to cable and to satellite TV. So vaping is the same thing. Vaping came around, and it was a consumer-founded solution to the smoking issue. The problem is that the government has not gotten its hands on it. America was built on tobacco and alcohol taxes. We all know that, right?
Yep.
So since the government couldn't grasp it, right, they use these kids as a front, and they're going after it simply because they just can't. They're losing money, and it's not just one entity that's losing money. Smoking is a multi-billion-dollar business, not only for big tobacco companies, but also for states that depend on tobacco taxes, they receive from what's called the Master Settlement Agreement, Anybody can Google that and see exactly what that is. Every cigarette that's sold in a state, the state gets a kickback from that. Number two, the pharmaceutical industry. Treating tobacco-related illnesses is again, 25% of Mayo Network clinics, which is 127 hospitals, 25% of their income comes from treating tobacco-related illnesses. So you can imagine like what would happen if they lost 25% of their revenue because people quit smoking, right?
Yeah.
They would collapse. Then you have these groups that have popped up, like the Truth Initiative and Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, and everybody thinks, oh, these people care about, or these Karen moms with PAVE that can't parent their own kids, and now they're coming after mine. So we have these groups, these nonprofit groups that have popped up, but guess what? They all receive money from tobacco companies, right? From cigarette sales, and all of them get paid. The top executive, Matt Myers, in Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids makes $440,000 a year. So, you don't want competition to take away that. So yeah, the government, especially state government, we're seeing that in New York and Massachusetts, California, they're going after these products heavily because they depend a lot on tobacco taxes, and they're banning vapor products or flavored vapor products while allowing cigarettes to be sold on every corner in America. It's crazy. I mean, I don't care if you smoke or if you vape. This is a human rights issue. This is something that everybody should wake up and say, they're doing this with, I don't know if we can cuss, but.
Say whatever you want.
Oh shit, they're doing this with vapor products. What if they come tomorrow and they say, I can't have a vanilla latte? Like I can only have a regular coffee. Or I can't have my flavored vodka. I can only have regular vodka,
Yep.
So I think more people should be aware of what's happening with it. I mean, we're fighting very hard every chance that we get. But the truth is that the government is trying to crack down on it. And I think it's going to continue until they figure out how they're going to be able to get their piece of the pie. It's a pay to play, society, unfortunately. And I think once we're able to put that into a regulatory structure or tax them, which is, again, unfair, I think that they're going to continue to go after them.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, because you brought up the flavoring. I think when I heard that the government was going to ban the different like flavors of Juul, pods, like mango or whatever, they're banning all these flavors, tropical. Then I'm thinking, well, you can go to the store, you can get vodka, and you can get mango, strawberry, cherry, blueberry, every flavor. They're not worried about that, but they're worried about kids trying flavored vape. Like I can't wrap my mind around that.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, more people die from mango flavored vodka every year than they do from vaping and drunk driving. But the truth is that this is the only thing that the government can grasp onto, right? They're saying that kids are being enticed by flavors, and this is why they're using these products, completely disregarding adults. I was at a hearing in Nashville last year, and I was testifying in front of a committee, and one of the guys asked me, he's like, well, why do you need cherry flavored e-liquid? And I was like, do you like cherry pie? He's like, oh yeah, I love cherry pie. I was like, well, because I'm an adult. I like cherry as well, too. Why should we would not have cherry? Flavors is the most important part of the electronic cigarette to be successful for the user. Nobody likes the taste of tobacco.
No.
Nobody likes the taste of ashtray in their mouth. I smoked for 23 years. Let me tell you something. It's nasty. It was simply the only delivery method we had all these years, right? So the fact that we have these flavors, what these flavors do is it disassociates your mouth from the taste of tobacco. So usually the process happens, somebody quits smoking with vapor products, they try a tobacco liquid for a couple of weeks, and then quickly they realize, oh, I don't really like the taste of tobacco. So then we have all these flavors. You can find a vanilla, a cherry, a strawberry. That way your taste buds can go back to normal. So it kind of disassociates yourself completely from tobacco. And you know what the irony about this is? If you have kids that were using mango Juul pods, for example, and you take them away from the market, what are kids going to do? They're going to go and try Juul tobacco pods. Yeah. I mean, so basically you're retraining them to like tobacco, and eventually that might lead to smoking as well too, if you remove the tobacco Juul as well too. The flavoring is a real cop-out by the government. There's no data that flavors are the ones that the reason why the kids are using it. But kids are smart. Why would you want to go try something? They're just not giving kids credit for how smart they are. It's less harmful. And instead of trying something that tastes like, your grandma's ashtrays from the 60s, you're trying a delicious mango. And I think that there's nothing absolutely wrong with that. Marketing can be controlled, set some parameters, say, hey, don't put, cartoons on labels.
Yeah.
Some companies do that, and I'm against that. I'll be completely honest with you. And we've tried to self-regulate, but it's very, very hard to do. But you can set some marketing parameters. You can't advertise on certain, just like they do with cigarettes. We can't advertise, on TV during prime time. You can't advertise on TikTok. You can't advertise, cartoon characters or flashy labels. You can set some parameters, but the products themselves, they're crucial. They're crucial for over 3-4 million Americans right now that have quit smoking with these products. Adults that otherwise might possibly die at a younger age and cause a huge burden financially on the healthcare system. They deserve it as well too. And of course, the other 40 million smokers that still are in America. Still 40 million people smoking.
Wow.
It's a tragedy.
Someone wanted me to ask you if we will ever see flavored pods or flavored e-vapes come back at all, if that's a possible thing.
Yes. So currently they are like Juul kind of, voluntarily pulled them out because they were trying, they're a big tobacco company. They're trying to kiss ass with the regulators. But, this industry is very, very smart. So immediately that gap was filled by what's now disposables. Disposables is a huge thing now. They come in all different flavors. And it's basically a one-time battery, a very small battery you buy that has the liquid inside. And when you're done, you throw the whole thing. You don't throw the pod away. Again, another way of the government showing you they tried to regulate something and it created a huge environmental issue, in my opinion, because people are throwing away, an entire battery every time that they use it. So they've kind of filled the gap there. But there is a process going on now with the FDA. It's called the pre-market tobacco application. Our deadline was September the 9th of this year to submit applications to the FDA and look at these products and look how it's helped adults quit smoking and submit clinical data on the toxicity and, the emissions of these products, submit behavioral studies that you've done with your customers. And we're hopeful that within a year of the FDA reviewing these applications, they'll look at them and they're going to say, well, the data does not lie. The science is there. Vaping is better than smoking. And they're going to allow these products to be sold legally on the market. And not that the products now that are illegal, but I think that once you get the FDA to give you authorization for a product, it's easier for me to sit in this chair and tell you, hey, look, the FDA said it's less harmful than cigarettes and at this percentage, right? So hopefully that's going to happen. The only problem with that is, again, the burden to pass this application, again, is pay to play. It's multi-million. So not a lot of companies will be able to afford it. But there are companies out there that are attempting to go through this process now. And hopefully we'll know something by September of 9th of 2021.
2021. Okay.
Well, I got to ask, what is your favorite flavor?
So, I smoked the last brand of cigarettes I smoked was Natural American Spirits. And before that, I smoked Marlboro Ultralights for years. So I was never a menthol smoker. So when I quit smoking, I quit with this sour apple flavor. It was delicious. It was just what did it for me at the time. But quickly what I realized is that, within a few years, menthol, that little cooling sensation that it gives you, it actually kind of worked to like scratch my throat like a cigarette used to do. Because, when you light a cigarette up and you first inhale, it kind of burns your throat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that feeling is desired by smokers. It's like a calming feeling. So I quickly switched, and like within a couple of years, I was using menthol flavors. So my favorite flavor right now is a eucalyptus mojito. Which is again menthol lime, and then my other favorite for right now is like a fruit salad. It has mango, it has orange, tangerines, pineapple, and again that has like a little cooling sensation inside too. So I like something, I don't like the same flavor all the time. Variety is the spice of life. But I tell you what, I don't like the taste of tobacco. I can't.
I saw an interview that you were doing where you were talking about the PMTA process and everything. Can you kind of explain that to people, what that entails, or why companies need to do this? What is it all? What's behind that?
Sure. So briefly, I'll try to explain it because it gets very, very regulatory but back in 2009, Obama signed into law the Tobacco Control Act, which gave authority to the FDA to control tobacco products, right? Nobody had control over tobacco products before that. It was basically an agreement between Philip Morris, they were the leaders of this, and the government. So it was basically a negotiation. You give us this, we'll give you that, we'll pay you this, you'll pay us that, and then the FDA will take control under the Center for Tobacco Products to control cigarettes. So within that Tobacco Control Act, they gave the authority to the FDA to also deem their regulatory hand over other nicotine products as well too. And all they have to do is like, yeah, we deem it a tobacco product. If it's derived from nicotine, then we can put it under our scope. And in order for you to be able to be on the market, to sell this product on the market, and the reason why they did this is because at the time when this was drafted, keep in mind this started in 2001 and it ended in 2009.
Wow.
When electronic cigarettes were not even thought about. They're mentioned one time in the entire Tobacco Control Act. So, but what the intention of this was, the government said, well, we don't want you putting new deadly cigarettes on the market, which makes sense, okay? But if you come up with less harmful options, then you'll have to prove to us with all this scientific paperwork through this application and what's called the pre-market tobacco application, you have to prove to us that this product is less harmful than cigarettes that are on the market today. So of course, the tobacco company said, yeah, that's not a problem. We already have, cigarettes on the market. They're never going to be banned. By the way, they're grandfathered in the Tobacco Control Act, which is a great negotiating on the Philip Morris lawyers. So we already have the cigarettes, and if we're going to bring anything else, of course, we can afford to do it. So for the bigger companies, it really isn't that. I mean, it's still, even for them, it's a lot of work, but it's harder for smaller mom and pops operations, and that's one of the big overlooking factors of the independent vapor industry. We are independent. We're not big tobacco. We're not RGR. We're not Philip Morris. So a lot of these businesses were born just by people quitting smoking. I quit smoking. I can't believe anything worked for me. I'm going to open up a store and help other people. And this is how it kind of all started back in 2011 and 2012, resulting in at one point over 10,000 small businesses in America that were associated with this product. And over 5,000 independent e-liquid manufacturers that it's going to be virtually impossible for them to go through this process. Keep in mind that approximate cost by the FDA has it between $500,000 to $2 million for one single flavor. So if I have six bottles of, 6 flavors of bottles, I would need the budget of a small country to be able to go through this, this process. But there's some companies out there that are kind of bridging studies, and we're trying to work with the FDA. We've submitted some applications to see how it's going to go. No matter who gets it, even if it's big tobacco gets a PMTA first, or our industry gets a PMTA first, granted, meaning that the FDA will tell you, okay, well, your product met the threshold. I think it's a good thing for smokers in America, and I think it's good for public health, because simply it will reiterate and prove what we have been saying all these years, and that is that vaping is much, much less harmful than smoking.
Yeah. Well, and what do you think about the government changing the age of purchasing tobacco from 18 to 21 now all over the country?
It's simply the stupidest thing that I mean,
yeah.
We're telling a guy basically at 18, look, you can go to Iraq and you can lose a leg, right? But you can't light up a cigarette.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, it's completely ridiculous. And who determines who an adult is? I don't understand, like, what is the qualification? Because at 18, you can vote. And trust me, with this past election, we're giving you a huge responsibility at 18 to vote. But, after you take that time and think about which one of these two jokers I'm going to vote for, you can't have a cigarette afterwards. I'm a free market guy. I don't believe there should be. But more harmful to that is that they put 21 restriction on vapor products, because if somebody like me, I started smoking at 13. If somebody like me at 18, I'm a 5-year addicted smoker, right? At 5 years I've been smoking. You're telling me at 18, well, you can't try vapor products because you're not 21 yet. So you're going to have to smoke for another 3 years until you're 21 and try vapor products. It makes no sense at all. I think it was more of the big tobacco companies kind of saying, okay, we'll give you this, just get off our back. Because, they were under a lot of pressure, and we were under a lot of pressure. I was completely against it here in Tennessee. We fought it 2 years in a row, and we beat it when the age increase came here in Tennessee. Eventually it became federal law. The state has to follow it. But all the politicians that I talked to agreed with me. They said, when I brought up these points and I explained it to them like that, and once you understand that vaping is less harmful than cigarette smoking, then it makes no sense to put an age restriction on it. I don't care if you're 16. If you've been smoking for 2 years, I'd rather you pick up a vape and try to quit smoking than you to continue to smoke. And any parent that's smart should do the same thing as well too. But I will tell you that kids don't think this product is cool if their parents used it to quit smoking. Right. So there's the difference. Like if you're gonna really glamorize juuling and all this, of course kids are gonna gravitate it. But no kid wants to say, "Oh, yeah, I'm using the product that my dad used to quit smoking." Right? It's not cool anymore. So that's what the government should do. The government should make it not cool and just say, "Hey, adult smokers, go out there and try vaping. If you've tried everything," and this is what I always say: try the patches, try everything the government's recommending for you. And if you have failed, give vaping a try. And if the government had done that, I think the kids would be like, I don't want nothing to do with that. It's just not cool for me. Yeah. And it would be in a better spot today, and health would be better in a spot.
My question is, why do they think it makes a difference between 18 and 21? Like, we're talking a period of time wherein everyone is kind of experimenting and trying things, whether you're 18 or you're 21. I just can't wrap my mind around why they would even make that a rule. Like, it blows my mind.
Yeah, it's not going to stop anything. It's not going to change experimentation. I can get on my daughter's Snapchat, and I can find you right now online if you want to buy on her Snapchat, on Instagram, weed, Molly, vapes, cards, anything that you want. Anything that you want, the full menu.
Yep.
But I think what they were trying to do, a lot of these kids get them from that 18 to 19-year-old crowd. So they were trying to stop the straw purchases, meaning I have an 18-year-old guy that goes and buys 10 Juul pods, and then he sells each one of them for $5 in school, which it's a great business, by the way. Let me tell you something. If I was 18, probably, I'd be considering it. But I think that's where their thought was, is let's stop those straw purchases between an 18 and 19, which kind of makes a little bit of sense as well too. However, you can control this in other ways. You can control it by how many products somebody can purchase at one time. You can be more stricter with the retailers. We have a law in America. You have to be 18 at the time to buy. One of my arguments with the lawmakers is always like, why are you punishing the consumer and you're not going after the people that sell these to kids? In Tennessee, there were 1,300 violations in 2019. 1,300 violations of selling tobacco to a minor. Out of those 1,300 violations, 8 were at a vape shop. 8 out of 13. The majority of them happened at MAPCO, gas stations, Walgreens, big offender, Piggly Wiggly's. You got these $8 hour employees. They just sell it to everybody. How about coming down and putting a $10,000 fine on them? I guarantee you they're going to stop doing it, but they're not doing anything. They just slap on the hand and they continue. In fact, in Tennessee, you can have 8 tobacco violations in a year before you're penalized over $1,000, which is ridiculous. So I don't understand. Again, I mean, how many laws make sense to you? Not a lot, but this particular one never made any sense to me because they had the opportunity to at least distinguish between the two products because they're not the same, but they lumped them together and to the detriment and the health of a lot of Americans. But at the end of the day, it's one of these laws that does absolutely nothing. It's absolutely useless.
Well, and we talked about laws here. I don't know if you're too familiar. What are laws in other countries, and does it have a change in teens vaping, smoking, and maybe a lower death rate or higher death rate, if you know anything about that?
Sure. So I will take you the prime example, the UK. The UK, the NIH, which is the National Institute of Health they're the one that takes care of the people in the citizens' health, has embraced vaping. The Royal College of Physicians, which is the most prestigious college of physicians in the world, with over 32,000 physicians are attached to this, came up with a report in 2016 called Nicotine Without Smoke. And it's a report that is every year updated, came up with this 95% less harmful figure. In the UK, almost 3 million Brits have transitioned to vaping.
Wow.
The government is sponsoring vaping kits and e-liquids through their Stop Smoking clinics. There's no experiment, they don't have a youth problem. They don't have any of these issues that we're hearing here. But most importantly, in the last year in 2 of the major hospitals in the UK, they've allowed 2 vape shops to open inside. So you can literally go inside a hospital and buy a vapor product. And the reason why they're doing that is because a lot of people that come in with tobacco-related illnesses, you can't smoke in a hospital. So they'll allow them to go down there, buy a vapor product, at least to familiarize with them and maybe get them to start using it. Greece, which is my home country, follows the tobacco products directive that's set all over Europe. Vaping is encouraged again. You can buy vapor products pretty much everywhere. We don't see this problem because most of the Europeans have this as a smoking cessation tool. So it's not cool with the kids. It simply is not cool with the kids when your dad is using that product to quit smoking. And keep in mind, a lot of the products that we sell are not the jewels and stuff like that. I mean, most of the devices that we sell are, big boxes like this, setup like this is like $100. The kids cannot afford that. Number one. Number two, you can't, and this is not a flash drive. You can't hide it in your, you can't take this in the bathroom, whatever. You break somebody on the head over it. So a lot of these products are sold in Europe. We don't see a lot of this pod system in Europe as well too. So that's been another thing that's kept it out of the hands of the kids. They're just simply not interested.
It sounds like it's a different way they approach it from a young, like in the United States, there's such a negative connotation around the whole thing from a young age. We're told right away that vaping, don't vape, never do this, never do that. Where over there, it's almost like they kind of encourage a little bit like of experimentation, and then the kids don't end up doing it. Where here, it's like discouraged, but then the kids do it because, like you said, people want to go against what they tell you to do or not to do.
I get it. I mean, smoking will kill you. I mean, we know that. Okay, there's no doubt. I know that. I know what my health was. I know what happened to my dad, and I don't even have to go into the scientific reasons. But we know smoking will kill you.
Yeah.
If you can show me that vaping can do the same thing, I'm all with you. Let's do it. But all the data and the science that we have up today shows that this product is near harmless. Okay, nicotine has some effect. Some people that have high blood pressure shouldn't be using and stuff like that. But nicotine is itself as a drug, as a stimulant, sort of like caffeine. There's nothing to show that these products will cause death and disease. And that's the way a product should be regulated. Okay, we know that cigarettes are taxed high because supposedly, it kills you and it causes a huge burden to the health. Well, if vapor products don't, then you shouldn't tax them in the same bracket as you're doing cigarettes until you can prove to me that this is happening. Some of it is ideology. Okay. I mean, you have some of these 60, 70-year-old, senators and state legislators, or 80-year-old that have been voted in for like 16, straight. So some of them back in the 80s saw the big tobacco companies and the games that they did, and rightfully so. They're hesitant, well, we saw the Joe Camel back then, right?
Yeah.
We saw, and they're right. Okay. They're right. But this is not the same. We're not trying to hook your kid on nicotine. This is not the goal. The goal is to give smokers an alternative, a technology alternative to smoking, and in a way where they can enjoy nicotine. If you want to continue, I enjoy nicotine, right? Nicotine helps me focus. It helps me stimulate my brain, and so I enjoy nicotine. But I can get it in a cleaner delivery, and this is something that is very new to some of these old minds that are there. And of course, some of these pave moms, it's just like, they sit around a bottle of Zinfandel, thinking how we're going to have the vaping industry, instead of sitting talking to their kid about, vaping and what it is, right? And if more people understood that distinction, and then we used it more as a smoking cessation device, then you'd see that the kids would back off, because simply would not be cool. And then listen, if there's somebody that's 18, 19 years old and wants to continue to use nicotine, who am I to tell you? I don't want you to tell people to quit smoking. If that's your thing, it's your thing. If you want me to help you, I'll help you, but I'm not going to sit there and lecture you. You're an adult. If you want to continue to use nicotine in any form, you should be allowed to. This is the greatest country in the world. I just don't understand how we're allowing this on this particular topic that is so sensitive, especially over a product that does not kill you, versus when there's, hundreds of products out there in the market, and marketing of products that is clearly aimed to vice or hook, people into using their vices that cause much, much more damage.
Do you think in our lifetime we will ever see cigarettes gone, like done, that no one smokes them?
No, I mean, I wish it was
Yeah.
my dream, and I really thought in 2011 and 2012 when vaping was really picking up, and I mean, vape shops across America were opening, people were quitting smoking because we had no restrictions, we didn't have this media frenzy, we didn't have the term epidemic like vaping. Do you even know what the definition of epidemic is? Vaping is not a disease. You can't even use it punctually. You cannot use epidemic, but they throw all these words to scare people away.
Yeah.
But I really thought in 2012, 2013, I looked at this product, I was like, man, this has the possibility to eradicate smoking over the next 20 years. And I think that if it was left in a free market and let the technology continue, technology got so much better, much more satisfying, liquids got more sophisticated, power, safety, everything became better or just in this short decade. If they had left it unregulated, I truly believe that, maybe not in our lifetime, but I think in the next 50 years, as people are getting more smart and they understand technology, that vaporizing is the future. And that's not just for smoking. Vaporizing THC is much less harmful than you smoking THC. It might not be as satisfying. I don't know. Again, I don't practice the sport, but just for research. But vaporizing removes combustion. So for a lot of things, it's a net benefit. So hopefully, as more of the technology catches up, and maybe some of these old school ideologies start to go away, simply when the science mounts up to a point where they can't deny it, maybe we'll see cigarettes going away. I think if big tobacco was truly, they put, big tobacco created, Philip Morris made a statement that we want to be smoke free by 2035 or some stupid thing like that. Listen, as much as I support alternative nicotine products being on the market, if you really care about being smoke free, you would remove cigarettes from the market, and they don't. So that goes to show that they're not really serious about that, and it's up to us, the individuals, to get out there like I'm doing now and spreading the word on harm reduction and how people can find alternatives and other options.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and I wanted to ask you, how do you go about combating like people that spread misinformation and like separating the real information on vaping versus the fake? Like we've been talking a lot about like the media overhyping things and throwing these words out there, these catchphrases that get people scared, like you said, the epidemic or whatever. How do you combat that?
It's really tough. I try to stay very active on social media. Twitter especially is a big playground for me, where I try to go in there and try to help and correct some of this misinformation. We try to do as many interviews as possible at every level, whether it's going to be local TV or state or podcasts and stuff like that. We have a couple of movies out. One is called A Billion Lives, and another one was released this past weekend called You Don't Know Nicotine, which are by Era Media Films, I think is the company that put them out. That really tells you and dives into the details of what exactly the problem is. It's very hard when you have people like Michael Bloomberg that's spending $100 million to combat vaping, believe it or not. But his media group has come out full blown against vaping. Wow. Surprisingly, he's in with Matt Myers, Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, but he's also an investor in a pharmaceutical company that's trying to put out an electronic cigarette. Imagine that, right?
Hypocritical.
It's very hard to combat against that huge of a money. But I do believe that people like me and a lot of people in this industry in vaping are very passionate about it. And every chance that I've had, since 2014 that I've been going to Nashville and lobbying and advocating on this product, I think when you have passion, when you can tell people I quit smoking with this, man, look, I feel great.
Yeah.
I think that passion, one by one, we can change minds. And we've seen actually people switch once they look at the data and they look at the science and they talk to the people. We see some minds are slowly changing. So it's just one person. It's kind of like, David and Goliath. It's just one person at a time, but slowly but surely, I think that we're making positive change.
Wow. Well, and we applaud you for that, because I learned a lot just from talking to you about this that I didn't know about. And I think the more people that can hear that, especially the positive message behind quitting such a thing that will kill you, going to something that we've talked about has no proof that it's killed anybody. So, that's a huge piece right there. And I think the more people that hear that, the better.
One of my biggest adversaries is the U.S. Surgeon General, Jerome Adams. I don't know if you know him, but you should Google him. Jerome Adams is the U.S. Surgeon General of the United States of America. He was appointed because he worked with Pence in Indiana. He was his state Surgeon General there. So this U.S. Surgeon General, he is against vaping. With absolutely no proof, and we have these fights on Twitter all the time. Not fights, you know. We go back and forth and stuff like that. But he literally has not looked at any of the science. He has like a few moms that come to him and say, "Oh, you know, I caught my kid with a Juul pen," and he's like, "I'm really concerned, and we should set policy." And I'm thinking to myself, you are the top doctor of the United States, and you want to make policy based on a couple of Karens that came to you concerned about their son, which they obviously can't parent because they're horrible parents and drunkards. This is unbelievable what's happening in America. We need to wake up. I'm telling you, these people are crazy.
Wait, you have gotten to Twitter fights with the attorney or the Surgeon General?
Absolutely. He eventually blocked me just the other day. He's on his personal account. He can't block me on his U.S. Surgeon. That's against the law. But, you know, he has two. He has Jerome Adams, MD, which is his personal, and then the U.S. Surgeon General. So finally, on his personal, he blocked me, which I wear it proudly. It's just one of my greatest achievements. That just means that I was successfully. I mean, I never cussed the person. I'm very, very polite. I have a huge following on Twitter, and I'm very accurate in my information that I respond with. I get a little, you know, quirky a little here and time. I try to get a little jab here, but he finally blocked me, and that is an accomplishment to me. If me, little Dimitri, you know, in Chattanooga, Tennessee, is getting in the mind of the Surgeon General, that means that what I'm saying is absolutely accurate, and I take pride in that. And he should not take pride in what he's doing for the American people because he's letting them down.
He's not even or he is afraid to have like just a civil debate with you, just to talk about
Absolutely.
it. Really?
I go to DC 3-4 times a year. I've invited him for coffee. I told him I would use a non-flavored vape if he wants to. You know, if cherry bothers him, you know, if he's allergic to fruit, you know, and stuff like that. And never had the opportunity. And in fact, you know, he would come back with some. And, you know, we have all this documented, of course, screenshots. But he would come back with, you know, oh, you know, I checked my Google feed and I saw that vaping is bad because this study came out of, you know, he didn't even, you know, he doesn't even check the study to see if it's correct or if it's accurate of what exactly. It's just saying his Google feed.
Wow.
So basically, we have a policymaker in the Trump administration that's making policy based on his Google feed. Welcome to America 2020, my
That's
friend.
crazy.
Very, very aware. You should be aware. I don't know how old you are, but you should be very worried about your future. You know, I'm 50. What I got 20, 30 years ago. But you and your kids, you should be worried about if this is where we're heading. People need to stand up. This is a human rights issue. There's over 480,000 Americans that die every year from smoking. That's an epidemic.
Yeah, for real.
That's an epidemic. And until this government realizes that, hey, maybe we got the wrong culprit here, and we need to change our stance on this, and things are not going to change. People are going to continue to die, and people are going to continue to suffer. You know, dying from smoking is also a suffering disease. You can go 7-8 years with COPD and suffer through that. Not only you, but your loved ones around you. So the cost of smoking is tremendous in this country. Now, on the same hand, it contributes to almost $830 billion a year in taxes.
Wow.
So, you know, I get it. Like Chris Rock, you know, said about O.J. Simpson, you know, he didn't have to kill his wife, but I understand. You know?
Do you think, where was my question going here? I had a question. It'll come back to me. I'm going to ask you a viewer question here, though. His question is, what do you think will be the next trend? Because he said it started with the big box mods and now it's moving to smaller devices like Juul. He wants to know what's coming next.
So that's a great question as well, too. Yes. So everything started small in 2010, just little stick batteries that kind of looked like cigarettes, you know, very small battery. And then obviously it grew into bigger devices and bigger box mods. And that was kind of like the trend between 2016 and 2018. And then when Juul came along, obviously the industry responded and we saw a lot of the smaller pods come out. I believe that eventually that in the United States, we're going to see a nicotine cap, which makes sense. Okay. In Europe right now, there's a 20 milligram nicotine cap. That means that no electronic cigarette on the market in Europe can have over 20 milligrams per milliliter of nicotine in it. America does not have that. Juul sells a 50 milligram per milliliter jewel pod, right? So it's a very high concentration of nicotine. It's a salt nicotine, so it's smoother on the throat. It's effective, but the problem is it's also enticing for people to try it. So I think that once the government understands, we need to find a balance of what nicotine can satisfy smokers to quit, and we don't have this initiation or experimentation of the product, I think we're going to see a nicotine cap in the United States. And when that happens, we're going to see the bigger devices come back, because that's what's happening in Europe. These devices, the bigger devices, they vaporize lower concentrations of nicotine more efficiently. So I use a 12 milligram, I'm in the low scale of nicotine. I use a 12 milligram daily. But if we see that happening, then we're going to see that trend come back. I think that the pod will be around to stay, but it's only going to be a few companies selling them, most likely in distribution of convenience stores, tobacco shops, something easy somebody can pick up and just switch out. And I think we're going to see a lot more people going into the open refillable products again. And I can only hope that that happens, because they really do help in keeping these products away from the kids, simply from the cost and, the non-concealability of them as well too.
Okay, and this might sound like a dumb question, but can you get the secondhand smoke
There's
from
no dumb question.
vape?
Absolutely. So no, there is no evidence to show that because it doesn't emit smoke, right? So we have to keep it in mind that this is vapor that comes out, dissipates within 11 seconds, where smoke lingers for 45 minutes. Huge differences between the two. But in all the studies that we have done, it's basically like, you're probably breathing worse if you are in a bus or the subway in New York, not doing anything, then you are sitting next to a vapor. There's absolutely no harm to be done to bystanders. It doesn't smell as well too, which is another. If the only benefit me as a parent, if the only benefit that I got aside from my health was that I don't smell, because I remember my kids, is 8 years old. My daughter didn't want to hug me. I smelled really, really bad. So if that was the only benefit that I got, then it would be worth it. But obviously there's tremendous benefits to people switching. I've never been healthier in my life. My doctor fully supports my vaping. I've helped 2 of her nurses quit smoking with vaping products as well too. My lungs look like I never smoked a day in my life, and I smoked 23 years. So lungs do heal, especially if you quit smoking at an early age. And at the end of the day, I feel better today at 49 that I probably felt when I was 18. I don't remember as being as healthy as I am today in a very, very long time, and that's a testament. And I think a lot of people that use these products like I use them for tobacco cessation will tell you exactly the same.
Wow, it's unbelievable how big of a detriment that actual cigarette smoking is to you compared to, obviously, we're talking about the vaping. It's
pre-diabetic. I had high blood pressure, cholesterol pills, sleep apnea. This was all 10 years ago.
Wow.
The only thing I take now is a cholesterol pill, because unfortunately that's hereditary, but everything else has gone away.
Wow, that's unbelievable. Yeah. Another question for you here. This one might be more of a joke, but his question is it true that when someone steps through a vape cloud, a millennial is born? That's a Family Guy reference right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely true. I read it.
100%. Yeah. Well, that's where the Attorney General gets his information, apparently. Or not the attorney, the Surgeon General. So,
yeah. Well, I like the memes that go along with vaping as well, too, because I think that you have to have some humor when you look at some of the stuff that's happening to our industry, and you see states banning flavor products, or in California taxing at 68%. I mean, for crying out loud, it's just ridiculous. You have to laugh a little bit. You have to think back and say, one day history is going to judge you. People are going to look back at this and say that you guys are criminals because you drove people back to smoking. So humor is always really, really good for me. I always try to joke around even when I'm having interviews, just to lighten up the mood. But if you really, really think about it deeply, what's happening right now with vaping in America is criminal. And one day we're going to watch a documentary on Netflix 20 years from now that's going to show some of these backdoor dealings that people were making to get rid of the competitor to cigarettes.
Wow. Well, I have learned a lot tonight, Colin. I don't know about you.
I have also. It's
been an awesome episode here. I just want you, Dimitri, if you have anything that you'd like to plug, you were talking about your Twitter, because I'm definitely going to go follow that. If you have a website, anything else that you'd like to plug, this would be the time.
Nothing much. I'm just on Twitter at Vaping Greek. Greek. All my social media is at Vaping Greek. But yeah, Twitter is my playground. Join, follow me. We have a lot of fun on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
And I take it very, very seriously. I believe that Twitter is probably the most powerful. Well, maybe TikTok now, which is completely ridiculous. Like TikTok is like the coronavirus of the internet to me.
Oh, 100%.
And I stay off of it. But aside from that, I think Twitter is the most powerful, even for any citizen, because it gives you very, very short. You have to get your point very, very short, but a lot of politicians and a lot of lawmakers pay attention to the Twitter. Not them. They usually have staffers that are younger people that understand. Yeah. So it's a very great medium to get your point across. Just, try to be, polite and accurate. But yeah, at Vaping Greek at Twitter, that's all I have to plug. That's it.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you coming on. We'll put the Twitter in the bio. Everyone go follow Dimitri. I'm definitely going to have to go back and find the Surgeon General tweets because that sounds hilarious.
Look at his tweet. Look at his tweet from March 6th.
March 6th,
he posted, the rest of the world was burning with Corona. Like COVID was going crazy in Italy. He's on a plane going to DC, and he says, masks don't work for Corona. Don't worry about Corona. Roses are red, violets are blue. Now is the time high for the flu. Something like he's more worried about flu than he is about Corona. This is when the rest of the world was burning, right? He's like, don't wear masks, they don't work. Don't worry about Corona, it's gonna go away. And here we are, with 2 million people, it's just crazy. It's just going crazy in America. Now he's telling everybody wear masks. Like, what
sounds like
do you want to wear a mask? Not wear a mask?
Sounds like a crazy guy for sure.
No, he's nuts.
So
let's get rid of him. Get him fired.
There you go. If
Donald Trump does one thing before the office, fire Jerome Adams.
We'll get you in there, Dimitri, for Surgeon General with the next administration. So thank you, Dimitri, so much for coming on.
Thanks, guys.
Been an awesome episode. We'll be back next week. Thank you very much.
I've got a great. And then, yeah, I remember.
It's not even the shape.
Mentally ill.
A special effects agency.